So on to some MMA current events right now as well. Bellator MMA now, formerly Bellator FC, now Bellator MMA. They've recently have just moved officially to Spike. And there seems to be a new game plan for success with the financial backing of Viacom now with them. There's been some big changes to Bellator, so I wanted to ask you now, do you think that Bellator is now really able to compete against the UFC, or do you think that they really already are now going toe-to-toe?
Well, it's a situation where when another organization, the way the business of mixed martial arts and fighting is structured, comes along, people ask that question. Are they ready to compete with the UFC? I don't think that Bjorn and the very capable and dynamic staff that Bellator went into business to challenge the UFC. I think they went into business because they like fights and they want to put on good fights. They got a great broadcast crew, Jimmy and Sean and Michael doing the ring announcing. It's a really, really good package. And the fighters are unbelievable. Those things are really exciting. I think that they're doing it more for, to have a way because they love fights. They like good fights. They want to put on good fights. It's not their mission is to go out and get the UFC. I don't think that that's what they're trying to do. Now, in reality, though, there is going to always be those comparisons. Their numbers are going to be compared to the UFC. The UFC is a juggernaut right now. The UFC has got, they're on 3 different TV stations: Fox, Fuel, FX. Then they got their pay-per-views. They're a dominant factor. It's going to be very, very difficult for any fight show to upstage or usurp that. But I don't think that's Bellator's mission at all. I think Bellator is just wanting to put on great fights, and they're doing that. They really came out of the gate with that first show on Spike, which saw some upsets. Babalu got beat, some other things. I was actually at that show. I was sitting right next to King Mo, and Don Wilson was sitting on the other side of me. And the show was fantastic. Live, it was totally a buzz. And I think that it got better and better. And speaking of King Mo, a couple of shows later, King Mo went in against a very, very skilled journeyman fighter, Emmanuel Newton, and got knocked out.
Yep.
So I think when you start to build upon those kind of dramatic effects, where some of the champions get beat, some people, you get surprises rather than foregone conclusions. I think that people are going to start getting more and more interested in the Bellator product. Problem is, right now on television, we're basically, it's a glut of great shows. World Series of Fighting, Bellator, UFC, Access TV has a number of really, talented fighters on different organizations. So it's just a matter of attrition and how much Bellator can absorb, both financially and morally, to keep going and to be the number 2 brand to the UFC.
It's kind of odd to think that really 5 or 6 years ago we had the IFL, we had Pro Elite, we saw Affliction after that. All these companies that have basically made a lot of mistakes, and it seems now in 2013 we've got some very, very strong companies now. We have, as you mentioned, World Series of Fighting, Bellator MMA has come into their own, UFC is making huge strides in the sport. It really feels like this is the second boom of MMA, but this is going to be the strongest one yet.
Yeah, I think you're right, because the problem was, and I commentated for a number of these events, IFL, WFA, Pro Elite, which was Elite XC and Show XC on Showtime. I would see them make the same mistake over and over again. They would get somebody with money, they'd come in, but they wouldn't listen to the advice from people who were in the business, like myself or other people. They would hire fast-talking newbie guys with spiky hairdos or whatever, and just say, oh, no, I know everything. I'm a PR guy or whatever, and they would fail. They put the chick in there or whatever. And it was a thing where I don't think Bellator is doing that. I think that they're doing this very systematically. You got Sam Kaplan, who's an expert on things, all MMA, and you got a really good broadcast team that understands the game itself. And so I don't think that they're going to make the same mistakes, because the thing is, you can't let history repeat itself. If you do, you're a fool. If you go out and do the same thing because you're not educated on what failures happen, both for the UFC and also the companies that are no longer with us, you have to really understand this historic element and really be able to say, okay, they spent all this money buying figure rings and with large overhead. Let's not do that. Let's basically build this thing like Scott Coker did with Strikeforce. Before Strikeforce, got purchased and before Strikeforce even got on Showtime television, Scott Coker was turning a profit. He understood how to build a profit, how to make stars, and that was a really good prototype. I think he basically got declawed as soon as specialist got purchased by the UFC. It was a figurehead, unfortunately. But Scott Coker, before all that happened, really made things happen the old-fashioned way. He slowly built that brand, slowly built that product, was always in the black, had a very loyal staff, he's a very honorable person. And I think that there's something to be learned. You have to understand. You have to say, okay, we know the failures, the IFLs, and these type of people, but then there's the Scott Coker guy. So you have to really understand, what did these guys do wrong? What did this guy do right? And I think Bellator is doing that.
Absolutely. And, I actually want to talk to you now about this because this is something I never thought I'd ever be able to discuss with Mr. Stephen Quadros, that we would ever see the UFC have women's mixed martial arts in the octagon. And we just saw that with Ronda Rousey's fight against Liz Carmouche at UFC 157. So that drew big numbers. It drew very big numbers. And I was wondering, what do you think about this? Were those numbers more driven by curiosity from fans who may or may not come back? And do you think that Ronda and women's mixed martial arts can continue to draw big numbers like Ronda's did at 157?
I think it's a thing called timing. When the first UFC happened in 1993, kickboxing was starting to fade. It pretty much already had started to fade. Boxing was still strong. I think Mike Tyson was still competing, and a couple other name marquee guys. But there was nothing really explosive happening. So when the UFC came along, and of course they struggled for a while, then they broke through in 2005 with The Ultimate Fighter. It was a matter of timing. Of course, there was persistence that Dana, Lorenzo, and Frank Fertitta, they basically kept churning away. Now, the thing is with women's mixed martial arts, it's not new. It's been around for a while. Hook and Shoot used to have women's fights, and Showtime has been featuring women's fights on national television long before Ronda fought against Liz Carmouche, there in the UFC. So the homework had already been done. But Gina Carano was the first big star in American and maybe worldwide mixed martial arts. A lot of it is because she's very good looking. Let's be real here. She's extremely good looking, had a great body, and she could fight. Ronda has come in, and she's the new Gina Carano, so to speak. Very attractive, but world-class skills and legitimate Olympic background. And so you got the timing, you got it primed, and Ronda is so unbelievably good with the press, with the media, with the smack talk, shoot from the hip. It's a timing thing. Because if there wasn't a Ronda Rousey, we wouldn't be here right now. If there wasn't a Gina Carano, we wouldn't be here right now. You need that historic jump. Gina went up to a certain level, got beat by Chris Cyborg, got knocked down. Looked at women's MMA was going to basically struggle or fade away. Ronda came along. But Ronda can't be beat right now, or apparently. I mean, we'll see what happens if she bulks up to 145 because Chris probably ain't making 135.
No, sir.
But it's a thing. It's all about timing, and it's all about that once-in-a-lifetime experience. If you go back in combat sports and look at the era of boxing, which was basically started the golden era of boxing, the resurgence of boxing as a big selling individual sport was Muhammad Ali. One guy, not a bunch of guys. Not 12 different fighters, different weight divisions, all stars and all on TV. No. Only one guy did it. And it was a matter of that. It was time for that to happen. Smack talking guy from Louisville, Kentucky, won a gold medal, blew his medal in the river, came out, became a black Muslim, pissed off half the nation. The civil rights movement. It was all about timing and history. If he didn't happen, boxing may have never been. We never have seen Floyd Mayweather or Manny Pacquiao, this kind of stuff. Ronda Rousey, it's a timing thing. The timing is right. It's an eclipse. It's the once-in-a-lifetime experience, and Ronda is right there to drive the whole thing.